The 20 most powerful ships in the Star Trek universe. Number 10. Xindi weapons. Thanks to being manipulated into believing that humans were evil and would destroy their future homeworld in the 26th century, the Xindi, an alliance of alien species, decided to send a large mobile particle beam superweapon to destroy Earth. 3 of these weapons were built, with the final weapon's goal being the complete destruction of Earth. The first one, merely a small prototype, bypassed Earth's defenses and used a powerful particle beam to cut a 4,000-kilometer swath of destruction from Florida to Venezuela, killing 7 million people before self-destructing. The second of the Xindi weapons was tested in the Calandra system. Though the test didn't go as planned and the device's weapons were sabotaged, it was intended to destroy a small moon of a gas giant within the system. The third and final Xindi superweapon was specifically designed to destroy whole planets. Its capabilities were shown in an alternate universe where the Xindi launched the weapon before the crew of the Enterprise arrived and the Xindi superweapon destroyed Earth within a matter of seconds. Number 9. Scimitar. The massive, heavily armed warship Scimitar was a unique man-made variation on the classic Romulan warbird that appeared in the film Star Trek, Nemesis. The Scimitar was constructed by Shinzon as part of a plot to overthrow the Romulan Senate, appoint himself as Praetor, and start a war with the United Federation of Planets. It inflicted heavy damage on the USS Enterprise E and the forces of the Romulan Star Empire during what would become known as the Battle in the Basin Rift. The Scimitar possessed 52 pulse disruptor cannons and 27 photon torpedo bays, as well as primary and secondary shields. It was thus ready for nearly any kind of combat, having almost 5 times the weaponry of any other ship. In addition, Geordi La Forge characterized its cloaking technology as perfect in that it emitted no tachyons and left no residual antiprotons. It could even fire its weapons and travel at warp speed while cloaked. The ship could also hold Scorpion-class attack fighters. The Scimitar's ultimate weapon was the ability to convert itself into a powerful Thalaran radiation emitter, which was capable of wiping out all life on a planet on a genetic level. Number 8. USS Defiant. This tough little ship, as Commander Riker once called it, was a turning point and a game-changer for the Federation. It was Starfleet's first warship and the prototype for the new Defiant class of vessels designed specifically for combat. Originally built and designed to fight the Borg, the Defiant was eventually assigned to Deep Space Nine to counter the new threat of the Dominion. From the perspective of the storyline, the appearance of the Defiant also marked the true opening of Star Trek, Deep Space Nine. The Defiant was unique among Federation vessels in having little scientific or exploration equipment, not even having living space for families. The ship was entirely focused on military purposes, and was so overpowered with weapons for a ship of its size that it nearly shook itself apart during its experimental trials, initially compelling Starfleet to abandon the project. They reconsidered this position after the destruction of the Galaxy-class starship Odyssey by the Jem'Hadar, and the Defiant was put on active duty. Armed to the teeth, the Defiant had 4 phaser cannons in addition to the standard beam phaser arrays, which were used to devastating effect against a Borg cube in the movie Star Trek, First Contact. Covered in the most advanced armored hull, it was the first starship to use quantum torpedoes, with 6 launchers, 4 in the front and 2 in the back. It competently took on and defeated Jem'Hadar warships, and was even eventually tricked out with a Romulan cloaking device. Number 7. Borg Cube. Few vessels on Star Trek are as terrifying or iconic as the Borg Cube. As the primary vessel of the Borg Collective, every fight against one resulted in heavy loss of life. At the Battle of Wolf 359, 40 Federation ships engaged a single Borg Cube. Armed with the tactical knowledge of the recently assimilated Jean-Luc Picard, the Borg managed to destroy 39 of them in a matter of a few minutes. The battle became an infamous defeat in Federation military history. In the film Star Trek, First Contact, an entire fleet was summoned to take down a single cube, and they also suffered heavy casualties. Borg cubes are massive ships. Each one is around 3 kilometers across and possessing an internal volume of 27 cubic kilometers. It's estimated they can still function with 78% inoperable. Capable of both warp and transwarp velocities, they can easily chase down the fastest starships. Cubes were also shown to be able to drain the shields of a Galaxy-class starship within seconds with its tractor beam and use similar cutting beams to carve through enemy vessels. Millions of cubes exist within Borg space in the Beta Quadrant, but oftentimes a single cube is enough to assimilate all civilizations on an entire planet. Number 6. Doomsday Machine. One of the most iconic vessels from Star Trek, TOS, the Doomsday Machine was a nameless, automated device capable of destroying entire planets. The aptly named planet killer literally ate planets, and ships, and pretty much anything else that it could fit into its maw, destroying planets with its anti-proton beam and fueling itself with the rubble. By the time the machine was encountered by the crew of the Enterprise in the episode The Doomsday Machine, it had already destroyed and consumed all 7 planets in System L-370. The planet killer's outside hull was made of pure neutronium, rendering it completely invulnerable to attack. It also projected a powerful dampening field that cut off communications and could disable even the most powerful Starfleet vessels with a few shots of its beam. The planet killer's tractor beam would then pull the ships into its glowing maw. Perhaps the most chilling thing about the Doomsday Machine is that its origins remain unknown. It was believed to come from another galaxy outside the Milky Way. Even though it only appeared in one episode, it remains an instantly recognizable fan favorite and has been featured in several non-canon productions. Number 5. Whale Probe. This unknown cigar-shaped probe came to Earth in order to contact members of the long-extinct humpback whale species in the movie Star Trek IV: The Voyage Home. Virtually any technology ceased to function when exposed to the communications the probe broadcasted. 7 ships, including 2 Klingon vessels, were disabled by its approach to Earth. The messages broadcasted into Earth's oceans were so powerful that they began vaporizing the oceans and ionizing the atmosphere of the planet, causing environmental disasters. The best part? It was most likely just an unintended side effect of trying to establish contact with the whales. The probe was one of the largest vessels ever encountered by Starfleet, measuring at roughly 70 kilometers long and dwarfing both starships and spacedocs. Perhaps one of the most compelling reasons the whale probe remains embedded in our memories is that it remains a mystery. Its creators were never identified and their motives for broadcasting its messages to Earth remain unknown. Due to its amp-like powers to disable technology, there was no defeating the probe. Instead, they merely placated it by letting it talk to the whales. The probe seems to have had some level of consciousness, as it restored power to the vessels it had disabled as it departed. Number 4. Nomad. Nomad is an Earth probe launched in 2002 that appeared in the TOS episode, The Changeling. During its mission, it lost contact with Earth and later merged with an alien probe called Tenru in deep space. The 2 machines merged into a small but powerful machine, which due to its faulty programming destroyed everything it labeled as imperfect, a category it extended to all organic life. Before it was first encountered by Captain Kirk and the crew of the Enterprise, Nomad casually sterilized an entire solar system, including over 4 billion people on Malor for not meeting its standards of perfection. Despite appearing as little more than a 1-meter-long cylindrical object smaller than an average human, Nomad showed advanced combat capabilities during its encounter with the Enterprise. It was capable of firing an energy beam with the force of 90 photon torpedoes and could travel at warp speed. Nomad's red energy bolts could travel at warp 15 and track a target, and its defensive screens could deflect counterattacks with ease. Nomad could entirely block sensor signals, disintegrate nearly anything, drain all knowledge from living beings, affect mechanical changes in the Enterprise's engines to upgrade them, and absorb data from the ship's computers at a much faster rate than their maximum transmission rate. Nomad even restored Montgomery Scott to life after he was killed by its defensive screens. Nomad was a nigh unstoppable entity. It was defeated only through pointing out a logical fallacy in its programming, which caused it to self-destruct. If Kirk hadn't stopped it, it's possible Nomad could have gone on to eliminate all life in the galaxy. Number 3. Species 8472 Bioship. One of the most memorable moments of Star Trek, Voyager is the opening of the two-part episode Scorpion, where off-screen Species 8472 bioships effortlessly destroy two Borg cubes. Species 8472 emerged as the first species able to carve through Borg ships like a hot knife through butter, and made a big impression on the Star Trek universe in doing so. Invading from fluidic space, the unnamed species used organic ships with biotechnology more advanced than anything the Borg had ever seen. The bioship was heavily fortified and armed with weapons so powerful and frightening they actually necessitated a temporary Federation-Borg alliance. The relatively small Species 8472 bioships were shown pretty much destroying everything in their path. A group of 8 of the vessels, with another energy-focusing ship, was able to destroy an entire planet in seconds, Death Star style. After a failed Borg invasion of fluidic space, Species 8472 began a systematic extermination of the Borg and other species. Within a period of 5 months, the bioships were able to destroy tens of billions of drones, and hundreds of Borg-controlled planets. To make them even more epic, each ship only has one pilot and shares DNA with them. Its outer hull was also invulnerable to conventional weaponry, scanners, and tractor beams. Number 2. Klingon Temporal Weapon Ship. The powers of this craft from Star Trek, Voyager is virtually unlimited. Spearheaded by a Klingon scientist named Anarax, the temporal weapon ship had the power to eliminate its targets from the space-time continuum entirely, even erasing entire species from history. It was first used against the Rilner, mortal enemies of the Klingon, but was also used against the Alshuran Empire, the Malkuth, the Zal, the Garenner, and the Ram-Izad. When its temporal core is in operation, the vessel and everyone on it stands outside the space-time continuum, rendering it immune to damage by conventional weaponry and protecting its crew from the passage of time, essentially making them immortal. Though the Klingon temporal weapon ship's greatest weapon is obviously its power to change history, it also sported formidable direct energy weapons for more conventional combat. The temporal ship's core concept would be emulated by the Romulan ship Narada in the 2009 Star Trek movie, but even the Narada couldn't actually wipe out the Vulcan civilization, whereas the Klingon temporal weapon ship was used to erase countless entire species over the course of 2 centuries. Number 1. Voyager. Yes, while 1979 Star Trek, the motion picture may not have been as glorious, there's no denying the awesome power of Voyager. Taking the form of a mysterious, menacing, luminous cloud the size of a solar system, Voyager was unlike anything the Enterprise crew, or the Federation in general, had ever encountered. By far the largest vessel ever portrayed on Star Trek, Voyager's ship was almost 300 million kilometers across. For comparison, the Death Star was around 160 kilometers, or 82 astronomical units in diameter, or 7.6 billion miles. It possessed blue plasma weapons able to dissolve entire starships and stations in a matter of seconds, and yellow versions hundreds of times more powerful. Needless to say, it is able to destroy entire planets with very little effort. The vessel, considered a living being with a sentient spacecraft at its center, was described as being able to generate 12th power energy, or a scale beyond that which would be generated by thousands of starships. There's no doubt about it, Voyager stumps the Enterprise, plays ball with the Death Star, and holds the undisputed top spot as the most powerful ship ever in the Star Trek universe. Thank you for watching full video. Please subscribe the channel and share with your friends for more fun.